To me, the psychedelic experience works like a lens through which you look at life, or you get to see life in a way, and things in life that you haven't noticed before. Things that may always have been there. I'm convinced that most things you realize, recognize, and see while on psychedelics are always there, always surrounding you, always with you. They just pop into vision or into normal everyday reality, or psychedelic reality if you want to call it that, while on psychedelics. When I first had a real psychedelic experience, that was when 1p LSD was still legal here. I had it on this substance. I took about 200 micrograms alone, which I know isn't recommended, but I was sure that my mental health was good enough and that I was mentally prepared enough to go through it, and it was an immensely beautiful experience. It was a very sunny day, and at first, the first thing I noticed was something felt different. The typical psychedelic start, if you will. Something always begins to feel different. You can't quite put your finger on it, but something is there that not normally isn't. And when I took the substance and when it started to work, I recognized things that seemed like they were always there before, but they weren't. For example, like there were many patterns on the walls made up of the irregularities in the paint that was normally on the wall, but it made me see all those irregularities in a way which had a specific order to them. Not like the psychedelics put them in that order, but like they were always in that order, just you were able to realize and see this order only in that state. And the next thing that happened to me was this experience was like 30 years of psychotherapy put into about 3 hours. And after all that was done, things from my past, things I had put into the back of my mind and had forgotten about, you know, all of these um, things that you put into your unconscious, I had to work through those. Now I am not able to remember most of what I worked through, but it was incredibly relieving afterwards. In just 3 hours, I went through I went through 30 years of psychotherapy. And after that was done, the substance seemed to say, well, now that you did this work, now that you focused on that and pulled through that, now you get to have fun with the rest of the experience. And what I didn't know at the time was, for some reason, 1p LSD, for me, the experience took about 23 hours. Then the visuals started to fade. So it was very intense and very long, but it was still incredibly beautiful. And I'm sure that no matter what psychedelic, like be it mescaline, psilocybin, DMT in ayahuasca, LSD, or a drug of LSD, what you see on there, and I'm convinced of that, is actually real. That may sound like some weird, hippie, esoteric way of looking at life that most people would think isn't true, but I'm not saying that you take a drug and what you experience on that drug is real. I'm saying psychedelics are not to be considered as regular drugs. And I'm sure most people listening to this already know this, but psychedelics are consciousness expanding, and I am, like Terence McKenna, convinced that they played a crucial part in evolution of the human mind and even the evolution of consciousness itself. So I'm convinced that what you realize on psychedelics that you didn't realize before, be it personal things, be it your relation to the world around you, be it ecosystems and their interconnectedness and relation to each other, all that is always there. Psychedelics just make you look at it from a different direction and make you realize all of that. To me, these experiences are a crucial part of life. I personally would never not wanted to have taken these substances now after knowing how they are, or how at least some of them are. Haven't taken all of them. I don't think that's even necessary. If you want to, you can try, but I don't recommend doing that lightly without doing your research, because if you don't do them with the right mindset, in the right setting, and with the right intention or intentions, then you may get a view on life, or you may think of some things that you didn't want to think of. Like, the old problem that some people say, knowing too much is not good. I'm not a believer that you can know too much. It's just, for me, it's the way of how you look at what you know. Because psychedelics normally tend to show you things that you haven't thought of before. And to me, once, the same time when I first took the 200 micrograms of 1p LSD, this may sound crazy to some of you, but to the ones that have taken psychedelics, you know exactly what I mean. The whole universe, all of it, past, present, future, all information that ever existed and will ever exist, in all dimensions, everywhere, just all of it, folded itself open like a book in front of my inner eye, or whatever you might call it, inside of my mind. Not a physical book that I could touch, not like a real book with pages, but like an archive of all information. And being in that state, as you have access to all that knowledge, you are humble enough to not want to take that knowledge, as you always have access to it. In this knowledge, I could have seen everything or anything I wanted. But like most psychedelic experiences, you don't get to take much of that with you. The only thing I am able to recall is merely that it happened at all. And this is a way of showing, in my opinion, that you need to be humble. You need to look at all these things, but not with greed, not to take immense amounts of wisdom with you. What are you going to do with all of the wisdom of the universe? Nothing. That's exactly. It has no application in normal everyday life. But it may give you a way of looking at normal everyday life that will make most of humanity's problems seem irrelevant. Not that you shouldn't care about them, or not that they aren't there or anything like that, but merely that most of these problems have easy solutions that are overlooked every day because people are stuck in repetition of cycles. Every human is prone to that, even psychedelic humans, or psychonauts, people who take psychedelics, because in my opinion, or I'm convinced that the only time you aren't like that is on a psychedelic. After it wears off, you slowly tend to go back to those cycles. Not the cycles maybe that you had before, but new cycles from which you have to escape as well again in the future. Or you don't have to do anything at all, of course, but to go further on this path which I'm describing, you would have to break those cycles over and over again, as that is the normal thing to do in these situations. But somewhere along the way of humanity's history, I believe we lost the connection to psychedelics, and now most people think they are dangerous drugs, which couldn't be further from the truth. Psilocybin containing mushrooms have themselves, just by the substance entering the body, except for maybe some allergic reactions, never killed anyone. Well, there may have been some casualties from people doing them in the wrong environment and killing themselves by not paying attention to something or getting themselves into dangerous situations. But most psychedelics themselves can't kill you by dose. Maybe by your actions, but never by themselves. So it couldn't be further from the truth to believe psychedelics are dangerous. Well, they may be dangerous to culture, because you realize that most of culture is absurd. It's just crazy. We are animals, we come from nature. We are adapted to live in nature. You yourself are adapted to live in nature. If you spend a little bit of time gaining the knowledge for that, you yourself could walk into the forest and would never have to return. You could live there. You and your body are made for that. And we tend to forget that every day, or at all times, because we are living in an artificial society. We aren't made to live in this society. No, I'm not saying that this society is wrong per se or bad per se, but the way we created this society, or the way we are running this society, keeps getting worse and worse, in my opinion. And I'm convinced that if more and more people started to take psychedelics, these cycles of making this culture worse and worse by greed, exploitation of poorer people or poorer countries, cutting down the rainforests, these cycles will be broken. And this change would go around the world like a wave if it started somewhere. And in fact, it is starting. In the US, many states have begun to decriminalize psychedelics or psychoactive plants in general. And I'm highly convinced that this is the start of a wave that will travel globally and transform all of human society on a global scale. I just hope that I at least get to witness the start of it. Psychedelics can, and if you approach them with the right mindset and a fair bit of respect, will definitely change your life to the better forever. They will show you a path that you'd have to walk yourself. You'd have to put your energy into that. They can't make you do anything. They can just show you a way in which you can do far better than before. They will make your life simpler by showing you how simple life actually is, by showing you through this lens of psychedelics how your life will advance into a better direction if you keep going on the path that they showed you. You know, there's this saying of a guru. No, it wasn't said by a guru, but it's a funny thing to say. But there's incredibly much truth in that, and the guru can only show you the way to the toilet. You have to open this thing to yourself, and that may be a little bit weird to say, you know, but think about it. Think of the guru, or of psychedelics as the guru. They can only show you a way to go. You decide if you want or need to go. It's all your decision. They are not going to make you do shit, you know? You can take psychedelics, experience the profound truths of the universe, you know. I'm using truth very carefully here, but you could still go to McDonald's afterwards and don't care at all, throw your trash on the floor, but most people won't do that, as they now feel this connection to nature, and this connection to themselves and all of humanity. They realize all is one, but not in a physical sense, but just in a linguistic sense. What is the difference between most things, you know? All came from the same point, if you believe in, or that's nothing to really believe in like that, but if you look at astrophysics and physics in general, if you think about the Big Bang, all came from one. All came from the same infinitely dense point. So all really is one, spread out over an infinite amount of space. And you are part of that, always. You are living right now. I know in this talk now I'm going all over the place, but that's what psychedelics do. They don't just show you one thing, or while on one psychedelic journey you're not shown only one thing in one direction, you're shown things all over the place. Things you never thought to think about. But these experiences are what make life life. You have to experience things all over the place. Otherwise, you'd be staying still. You'd not even be spinning. You'd only be looking in one direction, and that'd probably be down. Because otherwise, you'd be seeing the moving stars and all of that, you know? Psychedelics are very important, in my opinion. Maybe not for all people, but for most of them. And it's never too late to have a psychedelic experience as well. Well, I started at 18 years old. You don't have to. You could do your research for 30 years and start then. You could do it for 50 years and start then. Hell, you could do it on the day you die. The last thing you do on this earth could be taking a psychedelic. Well, the last thing you do on earth may be taking a psychedelic or experiencing a psychedelic after all. as I have never taken DMT before. Maybe at some point in my life I will. I don't have any specific date or anything like that. I have never even seen DMT not on a picture like in real life ever. But it is believed that when you die, there is N,N-dimethyltryptamine, short DMT, released in your brain. And if there is something like a soul or a spirit or, just consciousness itself, that's what I call it. I don't call it a soul, I call it consciousness itself. If that is there is a high possibility that this substance that may be released in the brain, which was, I believe, recorded in rats, not in humans yet, but it is very likely, as humans and rats, or as rats are used as analogs for humans in testing, which you don't have to agree with. It's just a fact. I didn't do it myself. I'm just going off scientific research. And this, if there is consciousness as something on its own, I'm convinced that, or I highly believe, that there is a very, very big probability that dimethyltryptamine or N,N-dimethyltryptamine is a tool or a way to split the body and consciousness from each other. Now I believe that in an infant, when the brain is developing in the womb, that dimethyltryptamine is produced there as well to bring consciousness to the infant. And when you have a near-death experience, it is probably released in the brain. So it splits your consciousness from your body, and it goes into these other dimensions, which are described by people having near-death experiences. And when your body still exists after a set amount of time, I believe that it will take your consciousness back to your body. Or if there is a body without consciousness yet, like an infant, at a specific point there will be consciousness put into it. And when you die and your consciousness is split from your body and the body dies, so it doesn't work anymore, there is no body to come back to, so you stay in the other dimension where you probably came from before. And when you smoke it, the pure substance, N,N-dimethyltryptamine, then I believe that your consciousness or soul or whatever you might want to call it is stripped from your body, shot into this other dimension, and when it returns, it only returns because your body is still there, like in a near-death experience where your body might have thought, oh, I'm going to die. I need to react fast and release it. So when you don't actually die, consciousness returns like normal, like as if you had taken the substance on its own without the near-death experience. So I'm highly convinced that psychedelics are deeply woven into the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of human consciousness and humans in general. Because these experiences are incredibly powerful. If you've never had an experience like that, I could use infinite words in infinite different ways put near each other, like in infinite different arrangements. That's what I wanted to say. I would never come even close to describing it to you. And I'm not talking about DMT. I've never done that before. I'm talking about LSD or psilocybin mushrooms or maybe mescaline. I would never be able to tell you how it feels and what you experience exactly if you've never taken it. If you have taken it, I'm able to vaguely describe around it. I can describe what it isn't, maybe at some point, but or vague descriptions around it, so you recognize what I'm talking about and make it these little thought flashbacks, not actual flashbacks to the experience, but like, you know, these little glittering thoughts that come into mind and vanish immediately when you focus on them. These little moments of your past that may become coming back in the form of thought, not actual flashbacks. As far as I'm concerned, that psychedelic flashbacks, as often as people tend to say they exist, aren't actually real. Of course, psychedelics can trigger inactive psychosis if you have that. So you should check that up before you take any psychedelic, but they can't actually make you go crazy like that. So if you don't have any dormant psychosis in your family or yourself, then it's highly unlikely that you're gonna go crazy from psychedelics. You may think you're gonna go crazy, you may think you're gonna die, but psychedelics are very good at making you think that. They won't actually do that. The fear of losing your mind on psychedelics is realer than it could ever be without them. But it's unwarranted, you know? You're not gonna go crazy. You may think that you're gonna go crazy, and it may look like you're gonna go crazy, and you may feel like you've already gone crazy, but after 6 to 8 hours after ingesting, for example, psilocybin mushrooms, for LSD it's normally 12 hours, mescaline tends to be a bit shorter, from what I've heard. Mescaline I actually haven't taken myself before. You're gonna go back to normal again. And you should have a day after that planned, or maybe 2 days. The longer the better. Maybe not too long. A week or so should be enough at first to, well, most people just take a day after that to think about what happened and to put all of that into sense, if you will. I have no better way to put it at the moment. But psychedelics will definitely change you. They will just change you by making you realize what you want to change about yourself, or what you could and maybe should change about yourself for you to reach goals you may have put up for yourself. Well, my last psychedelic trip made me realize that people go through life looking at things or not looking at things because they always have the feeling they can come back and watch it later or look at it later. And when they walk by it again, like for example a beautiful flower, and people walk by it and think, well, I have all time in the world. Next time I can look at it, or I could come here every day to look at it. So they don't spend much time looking at it. But the next time they are there, the same thoughts reappear. So it is on you to realize that this is a trap of the mind, because you're gonna think that every single time you encounter that flower until it is gone, And then you'll have the regret that you didn't look at it. And in my opinion, this is why many people tend to regret not having done things in life. For example, for me, psychedelics, the last time I took them, made me decide that as soon as this COVID pandemic that we are going through right now is getting light enough so travel will be safe again, I need to start to travel the world, because I've been planning that for 2 years now, and the same trap of mind occurred to me. I was always waiting on the right moment, thinking about planning all of that, when in reality, too much planning isn't good as well. You can overplan, and most of you probably know this already. Most of the things I'm talking about are probably not new to you, but psychedelics are what breaks those cycles. Psychedelics are what helps you break those cycles, what shows you how to break those cycles. But in reality, you have to break those cycles yourself, because you can't change something like that in a, at most, 12-hour psychedelic journey. That's barely enough for all of this knowledge, or a better way to put it, information, to be downloaded into you. You have to realize that you are living right now, and you will die. And this is not something negative to say from me, or for me. Everybody dies. Most people are dead. It's more natural to be dead than to be alive, if you look at it that way, but that's no reason to be dead, you know? Being dead is not better than being alive, from as far as I can tell, from a living point of perspective. But life is long, but it is too short, but it is still too short to wait on things, wait for the right moment. Well, there are things in life where that may be necessary, like planting seeds into the ground for them to grow. Yeah, there you have to wait for the right moment, because if you plant them too early, they're gonna freeze. If you plant them too late, you're not gonna get a harvest out of them. But most things in life, you don't have to wait on them. There's no reason to wait. You just have to act right now. Don't even think about it. If you know what you are doing, and if you know what you are talking about, go for it. There's no better time to start than now, and I'm sure you have heard that on some motivational quote or something like that. But it is more real than you could ever think of. Start now. Life is now. The only thing coming is an end, not a start like that. Well, of course, maybe death is a start to something different. I'm not denying that or claiming that that is false, but you can't wait on an imaginary date for when it would feel right to start living, right? To start doing the things you like. In my opinion, there are two things that are important in the universe, or most important for you in life. Or not most important for you in life, I'm sorry, that was a wrong way to put it, because one thing is all matter or energy wants to disperse equally in space. That's something that is happening. That's why the universe is expanding, or that's at least what is happening through the universe expanding. But the other thing, that's maybe the existence of the universe. Let's call it that. But the second thing, and this is more important for humans or beings is that in that to me the meaning of life, or the reason, no, not the reason, the meaning of life is more accurate, is just to be happy without doing harm to others. And this may sound like unapplicable hippie nonsense, but think about it. If you are the richest man on earth, with most of with the most material wealth, all of the best people that you could think of surrounding you, the people you'd want to have around you the most. If you'd have all of that and you weren't happy, none of that would mean something. All of that would mean exactly nothing to you. Because you would always be looking for something that would make you happy. Now, on the other hand, if you were happy and had absolutely nothing, no clothes, no friends, no money, not even a bite to eat in your hand or in your stomach. If you're happy in that state, or if you're happy at that moment, nothing else will matter. Because you've already reached happiness. That's the goal of life. Now, of course, there are different things to do, realize and create, or whatever, but you always have to focus on being happy, and no matter what it takes to be happy, as long as it's not harming others, because that would take away happiness from others. And the goal should be to create happiness for all. You should take that opportunity to be happy. If you, for example, if you were the most happy running through the forests naked, eating the plants you find, maybe eating some mushrooms, not necessarily psychedelic ones, I meant for food, but maybe also psychedelic ones, then why shouldn't you do that, if that's all you need? What is the reason why that wouldn't be acceptable or good? Who decided that humans have to be in this artificial environment? Now, maybe for some people this makes them happy. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying that if it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with that. Go into the woods. Live in the woods. Be happy. You can be the person that's looked at as if they were crazy, running around the mountains, living with the animals and speaking to the trees. What does it bother other people if it makes you happy? In fact, it should make them happy. Or it should make you happy to see someone like that, as they are happy, they have reached happiness. Now, if you have reached happiness, that's no reason to say, well, now I don't have anything to work on anymore and I've done it, that's all, I've beaten life. No, not at all. There's no goal like that to life, in my opinion. But reaching happiness should be one of the big ones up there on your list, because without happiness nothing else matters somehow. This may sound bad, but that's more of a reason to reach, or to strive to reach happiness. Happiness is something that you can only give. You can take it from someone, but you can't take it for yourself. You can just take it and destroy it, basically. It will never transfer from someone who doesn't want to give it to you. But you can give it to anyone you like. Happiness is something that, if you think a little bit about it, you could give to anyone you meet on the street. And psychedelics make you realize things like that. They make you appreciate life, and they enable you to look at life through the eyes of a toddler or a small child, looking maybe out into the world on the first day where it snows again. With that childlike wonder, you'll go into the world and recognize things that you haven't recognized before, and even after some heavy psychedelic experiences or after a bit of history with psychedelic experiences, you get to realize those things in everyday life without the aid of psychedelics right at that moment. There are people that have taken psychedelics once, and they have understood not anything in particular, but everything. They just understood. They never needed to take them again. Now, I'm not saying that they were not to gain anything from taking them again, but you don't have to if you have reached a certain point. Or you don't have to do it at all, of course, but for the sake of what I'm talking about here, you know. Now, of course, you could stay in close-minded everyday reality like most of humanity in most of recorded history, but I'm really, really, really looking forward to this change that has started. And I will be doing my own research on this and looking into what may change about humanity when this happens, as it started already. So I personally am a little bit aware of what will happen, because it is a highly interesting topic to me. Psychedelics bring all of those little details to your attention that you missed before. And once a few people, when, you know, now in the US some states are legalizing psychedelics, once a few people from other countries have gone there and done or had those experiences, like some people who did initiate this start by going to the Amazon and trying ayahuasca, to Mexico to try mushrooms, or be it Huahuma or San Pedro or peyote. Those people carried those experiences into their home countries and therefore spread knowledge about them there, and it started slow, but it's speeding up exponentially until it will reach full potential when this wave has traveled around the whole globe. And I'm really convinced that in maybe not my lifetime, but maybe shortly after, psychedelics will be a part of normal human everyday life like they were a few thousand years ago, where they weren't discarded as drugs and thought of as something bad that has to be banned. For example, if you were to be caught with mushrooms where I live, which I wouldn't recommend you do because they are still illegal here, but they are decriminalized to a certain point. But if you were to be caught with them, you'd have to go through addiction treatment. And that's just absurd, because it has been scientifically proven that even psilocybin, for example in psilocybe cubensis, or psilocybe acirescens, or cyanescens, or all the other psilocybin containing mushrooms, or psilocin containing mushrooms, it is scientifically proven to be able to obliterate depression and strong addictions in sometimes even just one good measured dose. And for people to just look over that as if it were nothing is just crazy to me. Because people go through years of addiction treatment without any real way to beat the addiction. While a substance is made illegal, which in just one dose is proven to be able to, not in all cases, it's not a guarantee, but is proven to be able to obliterate those addictions by showing you a way or a reason for just stopping to use it. And it may sound really crazy, and if you haven't looked into this, please do, because I don't want to talk about this and seem like it's just the most unrealistic thing there is, and I'm just talking just nonsense. This is actually real. They can make you just stop using the substance by yourself. They can give you that willpower, because they make you realize such profound things about life that you don't even want to take those substances anymore. For example, for me it was with alcohol. Now I wasn't ever a really heavy drinker. I never drank daily. I had a few drunk nights, when I was young. But after psychedelics now, I rarely drink any alcohol. Well, here and there a beer, but I'm even planning on brewing that myself with herbs that have been used in ancient times. So it's not just buying something and consuming it, it's making it yourself. It's something different. And I don't even like the smell or taste of alcohol anymore, because I just really don't need it. The same thing goes for cigarettes. I was never a smoker, really. Just here and there some cigarettes, but most of them with alcohol in combination, when I was still drinking sometimes. But after psychedelics, I had the willpower to quit cigarettes at any time I wanted to. I smoked heavily for 2 months because I had a very, very important test at work, which decided if I was able to finish my apprenticeship. And nicotine helps boost concentration at moderate doses, but I had to keep that up all the time. Now that's not the only reason I smoke, because I smoke because I like to smoke. But after the next psychedelic experience after that, I just stopped immediately after smoking a pack a day for 2 months. Now that isn't that long, I know. Of course, it's nothing comparable to years of smoking, but that has been done as well with psychedelics. And just to look at what can be done with psychedelics. Now, sometimes I still smoke a cigarette or two, but most of the time I don't even want to, which is something that people who quit cigarettes by themselves without psychedelics normally don't have. They normally always still have a little bit of craving for cigarettes, even after years. Well, if they were to smoke one cigarette after years of abstinence, most people who quit just on their own would fall into addiction again right away. Same goes for alcohol or hard illegal substances, where I didn't do, but I have to clarify that I do not like the term hard or soft drugs. I always use the term psychoactive substances for a collective term for all of them. And but for example, heroin or meth or all of those substances, they have been addictions from them have been beaten with psychedelics as well. You may, I just want to say at this point, you may hear me stutter at some point, that this is because I'm recording it, or this segment, without any cuts. I wanted to leave everything in, because even the mistakes I may make in talking here, English isn't my first language, but you'll probably be able to tell that by my English, but that's because it is the first audio segment I am ever recording. So please don't be too harsh on me. It's the first real audio recording of me, so I'm pretty nervous, Still, after those few psychedelic experiences I have, I haven't been able to get this nervousness away, because I didn't really want to, A little bit of nervousness is good here and there, because it makes you a little bit careful, and carefulness is never wrong. Over carefulness is, because that will like constrict you. It will restrict you from living your life to the fullest. And now I'm back again at these, deep life quotes, but it is like that. Live life to the fullest. Live it the way you want to live it. Preferably without harming others, because this goes for everyone, and it wouldn't be able to go for everyone if we were to take freedom away from others. But psychedelics, to me, are a very important part of life, and I probably will take them for the rest of my life in maybe regular intervals. They may get wider in between as life goes on. Some substances may fall to the, wrath of time. They may be lost after some time in my life, because I decided that other substances were better suited for some special things, or I don't know what's to come in life. But psychedelics in general will change your view on the world to a far healthier perspective. They will help you appreciate your own beauty and all the beauty around you, and they will make you recognize yourself in everything you look at. And by doing that, you yourself create the key to giving love, the same love you appreciate for everything around you when you start to love yourself, to others. You yourself create that key. As psychedelics will show you how you are connected to all things around you, and you really are. Look at that wall over there, or that bookcase. Look at the rocks that are lying in your garden. Look at all the grass, the trees. You are connected to all of that in some way. And if you say you're not, then you just haven't realized that you are. This is just a true statement. In one way or another you're connected to everything, but there is this deeper connection, as everything that you look at, no matter what, everything in your life's existence comes from the same place as you do. And that's an infinitely dense point at the start of the universe. And before that, as far as science knows right now, there was nothing. Like the Big Bang started out of basically nothing. And that may not be true completely astrophysically. I'm not an astrophysicist, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm really happy to here constructive criticism, as I'm always happy to re-evaluate my points. That's something psychedelics do as well. They don't break or remove your ego, as some people say, or make you think to believe. They make it in a way that your ego doesn't control you as much anymore. You're far more likely to be able to laugh at your mistakes, or to jump over your own shadow, to say, well, I was wrong, which is incredibly hard to do at first, but trust me, it's one of the most incredible feelings that a human could ever perceive, to genuinely and humbly, that doesn't sound like a real word, in a humble way, to say I am wrong. Because not many people are able to do that. And if you're one of them, that's a trait that is highly respectable and that you should keep and look after all your life. Because people will value that. And not saying that you should live for other people, but this will help you yourself as well. As saying you're wrong is the first step to learning more, or to learning more detailed things. Because being wrong doesn't mean you're completely wrong. There may just be, like in Martha, decimal place off. You might have to retrace your steps a bit, but probably not completely. And if you manage to live your life in this way, where you are not too much in your ego, and your ego is not too much in control over you, then you will be able to don't have to worry again. And that's what most people are after. A state of no worries. But that doesn't come without the cost of learning, or jumping over your own shadow and admitting that you may be wrong. Because there's no shame in that. Being wrong is just natural. How could you know anything? Or, I'm sorry, how could you know everything? You couldn't. It is impossible to know everything. And it's unnecessary to know everything. Imagine knowing everything. Imagine how boring existence would be. So, be happy that you don't know everything. That's something very, very, very important. Because if you didn't have anything to learn, then you wouldn't have anything to do. Because life is just lesson after lesson after lesson. Of course there's fun in life. That I'm not talking about school lessons where you sit down and have to listen to someone talk for 8 hours, Not at all like that. But learning in a fun way. Learning about life, learning about yourself, and learning about the universe. I will continue this talk in my next video, or I will maybe do a little bit different topic, and I'll try to improve on the little bit of stuttering I had and the rephrasing issues sometimes I had to do, like right now where I get too nervous to really be able to talk English normally, on paper, not only on paper, but I would be C2 English I would be at C2 level English, but now I'm so incredibly nervous because this is the first time, and I'm not first time recording this, and I'm not really sure how people would respond to this, and if anybody would even listen to this point at all. That I'm almost not capable of speaking proper English, you know? So I hope you liked it. I hope you could take something from this. If you want to, you can subscribe to my channel. You don't have to. Of course not. Do what makes you happy. Leave a like if you want to. And I'll be back the next time. Maybe with some more insight about life through or about the psychedelic experience. And after this, I want to, here is a little disclaimer: all psychedelic experiences I had were under legal circumstances. I have a few planned psychedelic experiences I want to talk about in general, like, you know, trip stories that I want to share with you that had profound experiences in them, but all of them were under legal circumstances, although I am for legalization of all psychoactive substances under certain, guidelines and educational programs running alongside them, so harm reduction would be possible. But I do not condone the use of substances when you do them lighthearted. No, not lightheartedly, that's the wrong term. But when you do them, when you take them lightly, like they're nothing. Psychedelics are tools to, well, of course they can be fun, and some people, I've taken them for fun sometimes too, Like I said, 3 hours were hard psychotherapy, the rest was fun, but be careful about them, because you might see things too early for which you don't have context, and this may make you think about things that you didn't want to think about yet. Not think about it all, but maybe just yet. Maybe you weren't at a level where you could process certain things yet. But this is now the real end of this audio segment. I hope you I really hope you liked it. I put my heart and soul into what I said. I may have repeated some things, but it's pretty late now, so I still wanted to record this because it really meant a lot for me to say this. And yeah, see you next time. Bye. Peace, and may you experience some of these things for yourself. And may you have at least taken a little bit from this. Bye.